Hello, Africa. This is Business Africa, and I am Ignatius Ano. Our top stories. Zambia commits to securing a program with the International Monetary Fund as talks progress. We'll hear from a Lusaka-based economist on the latest. A further pushback by South African Airways. The airline will not operate commercial flights until May 2021. An African e-commerce platform, Jumia, moves cooperation with Chinese suppliers to boost sales during the pandemic. Details right now. Zambia's negotiations with the International Monetary Fund is progressing. The Southern African nation is requesting for support under the IMF's extended credit facility, over $3 billion in Eurobonds debt and a further $3 billion owed to China. These are just some of the challenges at stake as both parties ready for more talks in the weeks ahead. The IMF wants Zambia to come clear on its debt and implement austerity measures. We'll speak to a Lusaka-based economist, but first, here's a report on the roadmap.
The International Monetary Fund, IMF, says a headway has been made in talks over a program for Zambia. The Southern African copper producer became the continent's first pandemic-era sovereign default after missing a coupon payment on a dollar bond in November. The IMF said work towards implementing fiscal reforms to correct large fiscal imbalances, ramping up revenues and improving governance was still needed. But in a statement, Zambia's finance minister, Buwaya Ngandu, said his government was committed to securing an IMF program. Creditors have also welcomed the announcement but were cautious about the speed of progress ahead. Zambia's debt load was considered unsustainable even before the pandemic. That debt includes around $3 billion in outstanding Eurobonds and another $3 billion owed to China and Chinese entities. Tensions between those two groups of creditors have so far stymied attempts to restructure Zambia's debt.
Chibamba Kanyama is an economist and he joins us from the Zambian capital, Lusaka. Chibamba, thank you for joining us. So the IMF report of progress with Zambia over negotiations for a program. How do you assess discussions thus far on resolving the macroeconomic imbalances in the country?
What I see is that the issues are still outstanding. Quite a number of issues are still outstanding in terms of reconciliations on issues of domestic debt and also polishing up the economic recovery program that the government has put forward. The progress itself will be much, much clearer after the technical team from the IMF has helped our own team here to resolve some of those issues so that there's much more clarity on the actual physical objectives that the government hopes to attain. So I'm supposing that the final information will only come after the elections in August.
Now, the IMF is seeking transparency. How critical is this? And also, what would a possible deal with the IMF mean for social protection?
Much of the challenges were with China, and largely because some of the contracts, number one, were not yet executed. So the Treasury had not yet accommodated part of that financing as debt because it was at contract level. And two, some of those contracts were not signed by the Minister of Finance initially. They were signed by respective ministries, but by law, only the Minister of Finance should sign. So that information has since been captured now. And remember that we have a data advisor who are in the country advising government, ensuring that there's a higher level of transparency regarding debt. Much of that transparency has to do with domestic debt, to understand the level of guarantees that government has made on behalf of the state-owned enterprises. The budget, the fiscal space to support social investment has been quite weak because 45% of whatever is made revenues has to go to debt servicing, and about 45% again, or 50% has to go to government emoluments. Nearly 60% of that has to go to salaries. So only 10% really remains for spending across all the government sectors.
And concerns of many investors are when an agreement will be reached. Is this feasible at this time, and what will be the impact in the medium term?
We have already defaulted twice in terms of paying servicing interest rates on existing debts. Though we have capacity to service Eurobond arrears, there are other creditors who also need to be paid. So government decided to default on this for the sake of equity. And the longer it takes, the longer also it takes in terms of reaching fiscal balance and having good reserves. As you know, our reserves are a huge risk at the moment. Investors are looking at the reserve levels, and as a result, the capital inflows in Zambia have been a little compromised in the past years. The investment in treasury bills or government securities have been quite weak under subscriptions, mainly because investors are very, very concerned about the stability of the economy. And as we have seen, the exchange rate is really against the local kwacha currency. We have a devaluation of about 33% just in 1 year, which has pushed the prices of goods and services. And that is a political risk. In terms of timelines, remember that now we have a technical team from the IMF who may come to Zambia shortly after the spring meetings. Spring meetings take place about April, May. And then in May, we have the cabinet, which will be dissolved, and there will be no Minister of Finance to make those key decisions for about 3 months until after the elections. And that compromises the speed at which we can make an agreement with the IMF. And that's why I'm anticipating that the lead time for these conclusions will be after August elections.
Chibamba, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
You are most welcome. Thank you so much.
It's been nearly a year since South African Airways was grounded. The cash-strapped airline was looking to take to flight, but that goal has been postponed yet again. The South African national airline has announced that all domestic, regional and international flights will not happen until April 30 and October 30, respectively. It blames the pandemic. Meanwhile, African Airlines lost a whopping $10.21 billion in 2020 because of the coronavirus. This estimate was contained in a report published by the Economic Commission for Africa and the African Airlines Association.
Still grounded by the pandemic and extreme economic hurdle, the South African Airways has suspended all domestic, regional and international flights. An update from the airline published on its website indicates that all domestic and regional flights are suspended until at least 30th April. It further added that all the international flights are suspended even later until 30th October. The airline said that because there is a greatly reduced demand for flying, it will only use its marketing flight number or code share agreements for the time being. The South African airline struggled to survive financially even before the pandemic disrupted global travel. The airline entered bankruptcy protection in December and suspended commercial passenger flights in March when the government imposed one of the world's strictest lockdowns to contain the new coronavirus. The airline received $342 million in February as part of rescue plan.
E-commerce has seen an uptick thanks to the pandemic. From foodstuff, clothing and all things essential, the online world has offered an incredible opportunity to local businesses in Africa. Now, that's why a World Bank report believes that online sales are no longer an option, but a necessity. Jumia, Africa's version of China's Alibaba, recorded a fourfold increase in sales of grocery items alone in 2020. It's not stopping there, as it is poised for more.
The leading African e-commerce platform, Jumia, is banking on China to boost its business during the COVID-19 pandemic, as sanitary measures and restrictions have seen many consumers go digital, a response that is favorable to the sector. According to Apurva Kumar, Executive Vice President of Logistics Services at Jumia, Chinese suppliers are enabling the site to meet the daily needs of customers by offering a wide variety of products at affordable prices. The relationship between China and the platform is already on track, as the technologies currently used by Jumia draw heavily on the Chinese experience. Nevertheless, this African company still has a lot to learn from Chinese sales platforms in order to boost sales and continue adapting to the changing environment generated by the pandemic. Created in 2012 in Nigeria, the platform, which has been described as the African Alibaba, should see good results this year, a return to grace for a company whose losses amounted to $246 million. Jumia currently operates in 14 African countries and boasted around 6.8 million active users as of June 30th, 2020.
And that's it for Business Africa. You can be a part of the program via our various social media handles. Follow me on Twitter at Ignatius Adam. Also, head over to africanews.com for the entire program and more. I thank you for watching, and goodbye.